Welcome to the thrilling world of Filmoro. Let's dive into Stars on Earth. The movie begins with Gulshan, a proud and selfish assistant coach who is always late to work, shows no respect to anyone, and always has sharp comebacks ready. Everything starts with a basketball match, where Gulshan disrespects the head coach, and the coach angrily shouts at him, "Shorty!" Gulshan can't take it, punches the coach hard in the mouth and storms out of the court. This is just the beginning of his troubles. That night, overwhelmed with anger, he gets completely drunk. He sits behind the wheel while intoxicated and crashes into a police car. He is immediately arrested. His brother tells him, "This could get you 2 years in prison. But if you keep your mouth shut and don't make it worse, I can get you community service instead of jail." The court convenes, and the judge delivers the final ruling. Gulshan must coach a basketball team of mentally challenged individuals for 3 months. Gulshan has no choice but to accept. The next morning, he enters the institute. The institute's manager, a kind and courteous man, tells him, "Soon, a national competition will be held for individuals with mental challenges. Now that you're here, I'll also register the kids here." Gulshan enters the hall and begins speaking to the children slowly and carefully. "I am your new coach." Suddenly, everyone bursts out laughing. One of the kids says, "I think the new coach is an idiot for talking like this." Then, each of them introduces themselves one by one. But Gulshan still looks down on them and thinks to himself, "A bunch of poor fools gathered here." To start, he says, "Okay, let's practice passing." Everyone knows this, but when he passes the ball, no one catches it correctly. The ball hits one of the kids in the face. That's when Gulshan realizes it's not as easy as he thought. Gulshan places a ball in front of each child and says, "Take your balls." But instead of grabbing the balls, the kids put their hands on themselves. Exhausted and frustrated by their behavior, Gulshan quickly goes to the manager and says, "Teaching these crazy kids is so hard. They're not normal at all." The manager calmly replies, "These kids' understanding is at the level of a 10-year-old. Don't expect more. For a 10-year-old, this behavior is normal. Look, everyone has their own normal. Hitting is normal for the police. Getting hit is normal for a thief. Begging is normal for a beggar. Showing off is normal for the rich. You have your normal, and they have theirs." Gulshan mutters sadly under his breath, "I'm in deep trouble." That night, Gulshan goes to a wedding with his mother. Sunita, Gulshan's wife, is also present there. After an argument with Sunita about the child, Gulshan storms off and stays at his mother's house. He doesn't even have the ability to talk properly and resolve issues with his wife, and always avoids the topic. He tells Sunita, "After the fight, I left on my own, afraid that you'd throw me out of the house." Sunita brings up the child issue again, but this time too, Gulshan avoids the conversation. The next day, he goes back to practice and says, "Okay, kids, today we'll start with warm-ups. Everyone stand in a line, touch your nose, and move forward." One of the kids says, "My nose is crooked. Where should I go?" The others each say something, and in the middle of moving, everyone scatters. After practice, Gulshan goes straight to the judge and says, "I can't train this team. Fine me, I'll pay." But the judge, whose nephew is also on the team, refuses and firmly says, "If you don't coach, you'll have to go to jail." A few days later, the institute manager calls Gulshan and happily says, "I managed to register the kids for the national competition." But Gulshan is not happy at all. He tells his mother, "What difference does the win or loss of these crazy kids make to me?" His mother replies, "They are your team. You have to give your full effort for them." Gulshan sarcastically says, "Basketball players aren't like this." His mother, however, reminds him sadly, "Remember when no one even looked at you because of your short height? I begged your coach and even slapped him so he would give you a tryout. You were considered a dwarf for basketball. But because you had talent, you succeeded. I fought for you, now it's your turn to fight for these kids." In the next practice, Gulshan goes to Hargovind and says, "I know you're smarter than all of them. Please don't play alone anymore. We want to win this tournament. These kids all have problems, and their families sent them here only out of care and to keep them occupied." But before he finishes speaking, Hargovind, without any reaction, leaves the field. The manager informs Gulshan, "Hargovind has withdrawn from the team." Gulshan angrily says, The only person I was counting on was Hargovind. Nothing will come out of these useless kids. This is when the manager calmly starts explaining about each child. This Karimi, whom you call useless, wakes up every day at 4 in the morning and goes to a hotel kitchen to wash dishes. Setbir works in his uncle's garage. He's such a professional mechanic that he even teaches mechanical engineering students about cars. Sharmaji doesn't have a mother and lives with her uncle. She works in a cafe, and anyone who can understand her words gets a 10% discount. Interestingly, all the regular customers completely understand what she says. Lotus works in a dyeing factory. Any bottle of color that has a problem is given to him by his manager. That's why his hair color changes every day. Godo is an animal specialist. Any animal that seems impossible to tame, he can easily tame. But because he almost drowned in water as a child, he's terrified of water and therefore doesn't take baths. Sunil always thinks he is sick. The manager told Gulshan, "All these kids have their own problems. Our destiny isn't written in our hands. The real coach is written in our chromosomes. If we had just one extra chromosome, we could have been like these kids. Hargovind's situation is better than the others, but he also has autism." When Gulshan heard these words, for the first time, he looked at the kids differently. His heart softened. The next day he stood beside the team with more determination and began taking care of the kids. This time, he put all his effort into turning them into a professional team. The first match was scheduled to be held right there. The manager was busy arranging the chairs when Gulshan casually said, "Who comes here on a Monday morning for these people?" The manager paused, then calmly replied, "Their parents. They may have gone through many hardships on these kids' journeys, but they are always supportive." The game began. Gulshan was so excited that it was as if he had forgotten that until yesterday, these kids had meant nothing to him. When the final whistle blew and their team won, he jumped into the air with joy. His eyes fell on the kids' families. All of them, full of excitement and tears of joy, were cheering for their children and supporting them with all their hearts. After the match, everyone was supposed to take a shower, but Godo refused. Fearfully, he said, "If I go into the water, I'll die." Just then, a mouse fell into the water. Godo, who loved animals, pleaded with Gulshan, "Coach, please go save it." Gulshan smiled and said, "I'm afraid of mice. You go save it yourself." Godo, without a moment's hesitation, focused solely on rescuing the mouse. He quickly jumped into the water and pulled the mouse out. Gulshan loudly said, "See? You're in the water, and you're still alive." Godo's eyes sparkled with happiness. He finally realized that he was no longer afraid of water. Laughing loudly, he took a proper shower. The manager, who had witnessed everything, turned to Gulshan and said, "You take the kids to the match. From now on, Golu Khan will play in your team instead of Hargovind." They went to the match venue by bus. The opposing team had a tall and strong player. Gulshan asked, "Who can stop him?" Golu said, "I can." But when he went onto the court, he just held the opposing player tightly. In the end, he fouled him so he couldn't do anything. The kids jokingly called Golu Bull B. The game, however it went, finally ended, and everyone got on the bus to return. But the kids were making so much noise that the other passengers were annoyed. Amid the commotion, Golu saw a photo on Gulshan's phone and realized she was his wife. He said to him, "I haven't seen your wife. You must have had a fight with her since she's not around. I don't get why people fight. And then, why does it never end?" Gulshan replied, "Ending a fight isn't that easy." Golu said, "Actually, it's very easy, you just don't know how. Come, I'll teach you." Then he firmly pulled Lotus's ears. Lotus fought back, but Golu quickly apologized and kissed her. Then he turned to Gulshan and said, "Now did you learn how a fight ends?" Everyone on the bus started singing. The passengers were getting really annoyed. The kids were hitting each other with chewing gum when suddenly one of the pieces hit the driver. The driver, who had been tense since the start of the trip, suddenly slammed on the brakes. Gulshan's nose hit the seat pole hard and got injured. The driver shouted, "For these crazy kids, you need to get a separate vehicle. Their place isn't in a public bus." The passengers agreed with the driver. He threw all of them off the bus in the middle of the road. They had to return home in an animal transport vehicle. When Gulshan got home, Sonita brought up the kids again. She said, "You have to finally face your fears. Just because you had a bad father who abandoned you at 5, doesn't mean you'll be a bad father too." But Gulshan ran away from the discussion again. Sunita asked, "Then why did you even come home?" Gulshan replied, "I can't keep taking these kids from the team back and forth by bus. We need a bus and a driver." Sunita arranged a bus for the team, and since Gulshan's license had been revoked after the accident, she drove it herself. From then on, the kids went to different competitions with Sunita and Gulshan, and they won every single match, one by one. During these trips, they learned a lot from each other and had become very accustomed to one another. In the final match, the coach of the Delhi team also came to watch the game. He noticed the big changes in Gulshan and was really pleased with all the transformation. Meanwhile, the relationship between Sunita and Gulshan had also improved a lot. They spent more time together and enjoyed it. Now the kids had reached the finals and were very happy. Gulshan was counting on Hargobind for the last game. To convince her, he went to their house. Hargobind said, "I had the national gold medal for the mentally challenged team, and I was the captain. But the coach betrayed us and brought 2 healthy players with fake documents into the team and took my medal. That's why I don't trust any coach." Gulshan said, "The situation is different now. I want you to trust me." With her mother's insistence, Hargobind agreed. When Gulshan went to the manager to prepare for the final trip, he realized there was a big problem. The manager said, "We can't go to Mumbai. The kids can't endure a long train ride and we have no budget for plane tickets." Gulshan and the manager were very upset. This was the first time the kids could have achieved a big success, but now it wasn't possible. The team was also upset, but they didn't show it. Gulshan made a plan. He went to Sunita, who was now acting, and said, "Let's go, I need an actor." Sunita put on a police uniform and together with Gulshan, went to Kareem's workplace. They told Kareem's boss, "We have proof that because Kareem is mentally challenged, you pay him half the minimum wage, make him work 12 hours, and insult him. This is harassment of a mentally challenged person and carries 3 years in prison. But you can do something else instead." This way, Gulshan and Sunita got the money for the plane trip from Kareem's boss and headed to Mumbai. At the hotel, each pair was assigned a room. When they were about to use the elevator, Gulshan wanted to take the stairs. Sunita said, "Gulshan, when you were a child, you got stuck in an elevator and have been afraid of them ever since." Godo tricked him and said, "There's a snake in the elevator." When Gulshan went to look at the snake, the kids pushed him into the elevator. But since it was full, the elevator got stuck. The rescue team came and saved everyone. The kids told Gulshan, "See? You didn't die. You conquered your fear." Gulshan was happy and sent the video of him getting on the elevator to his mother. While talking on the phone with his mother, he suddenly saw her enter the hotel with the chef and realized they were in a relationship. Gulshan caught his mother and started arguing with her, but his mother said, "I have always been by your side because you and I are a team. Now I expect you to support me too." The day of the final arrived. The opposing team was full of tall players. Gulshan told the kids, "We have to use the tall players' weakness. Make short ground passes. It's hard for them to bend." Using this technique, they got ahead, but in the end, Kareem couldn't make the shot, and the team lost. Gulshan was upset, but to his disbelief, he saw the kids were happy. He asked, "We lost, why are you happy?" They said, "We didn't lose, we came second." "That's great," Gulshan told Sunita. "I wasn't their coach. In fact, they were my coaches. I thought they were lacking something, but it was me who was lacking. I only thought about myself. They understand feelings well, and their view of the world is more beautiful." When they returned, the Delhi coach called Gulshan early in the morning and said, "I'm retiring next month. I've seen your performance, and I want you to replace me. Starting next month, you'll be the coach of the Delhi team." Gulshan happily said goodbye to the coach. Now he had reached his dream, but the hardest part was still left, saying goodbye to the kids. He couldn't bear this moment, so he turned to the manager and said, "You say goodbye to the kids on my behalf." Then he went to the new star team coach and seriously said, "Never do these 3 things with the kids. Never shout at them, because it will break their hearts. Never be upset with them, because their hearts are pure. And never, when it's time to leave them alone without saying goodbye." Gulshan became emotional right there. He couldn't control himself and went toward the kids. When he entered, he saw they were all waiting. They had prepared a surprise for him. With tears in his eyes, Gulshan said, "I'm leaving all of you. From here on, our paths will part." The kids laughed and replied, "Are you dying?" Gulshan laughed too. They were right. Their hearts were tied together, even if he was no longer beside them. At the end of the story, Sonita became pregnant. Everyone gathered to celebrate Gulshan becoming a father. He was no longer a man trapped by his fears. Gulshan had finally left his fears behind. I wish we all could see the world like those kids. Then maybe the world would be a better place to live. Comment below. If you were in Gulshan's place, when you first met these kids, how would you have reacted? Could you have had his patience, or would you have gotten discouraged quickly? If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit that like button. And most importantly, make sure you subscribe right now, so you never miss the next movie recap. I've got 6 playlists from different genres, and I add new movies every single month. You can see them right here on the end screen. Hit subscribe first, then pick a playlist, and keep the adventure going.